Hello, welcome to another episode of Coffee Chat and Book Review. I'm Leah, and this is a series where I interview an author, an up-and-coming author, or someone that has published a book, and we talk about it. And yeah. So my guest today is Asela Leigh Kemper. Why don't you tell me who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, so hello, my name is Ashley Kemper. I am a poet and I'm also just I recently graduated from the Pacific Northwest College of Arts with a Master's of Fine Arts and Creative Writing. So I really mostly focus on poetry, but I'm also just like an editor for a Variety Pack magazine. By the time we're recording, we just wrapped up closed our submission call, so we're kind of going through our submissions right now to see which we want to consider for this upcoming issue.
Nice.
And yeah, and I'm also hoping to teach poetry to folks in the community. So yeah, that's been going on. At least that's the goal. But right now it's just a poet in the Pacific Northwest.
So you're title of the book you want to talk about, because you've written or published several different books. Am I correct with that? I know that I have some of them from your college levels, your chat books, but yeah, go on. So let's talk about all that you've done, and then we could go into the book you want to talk about today. So yeah.
I only published two. Realistically, the one you mentioned is the chapbook I published when I was in college. That was for Cherry Blossom Festival. But the one I published with Gashing Teeth Publishing is called Finally the Chapbook. Finally the Mixtape, sorry, Finally the Mixtape, which is a micro chapbook. And it's a hybrid of poems where it's just based on the music that I love and consider my favorites and interested in. And I've written poems after those songs, or just based on the moments of my life with those songs. And it's published with Gashing Teeth Publishing, and it comes with a CD of me reading my poems.
Yeah, and I remember because you did an episode of How We Thrive, which people can watch on this channel, and you were talking about in that something that when you were in high school and when you were growing up that intrigued you about poetry writing is that you were really interested in songwriting as well, creatively. So it kind of follows that you would do something I love it. Finally a mixtape, because I used to make mixtapes all the time. Finally the mixtape. Yeah. So your
Yes.
songwriting has really been a part of your development as a poet and author, correct?
Somewhat. I mostly wrote lyrics for clarity. I just wrote lyrics and I was in from middle school, and I kind of stopped a little bit in high school. Then I tried to pick it back up in college, but that kind of also faltered because back then I wanted to be a serious poet. Back then I looked at my peers and kept thinking to myself, I should be more serious. I should be more serious and be kind of more focusing on the form than being play around. But when I got to grad school, I had incredible mentors, most notably Asela and Vicky Now, who encouraged me to incorporate music, and kind of, especially with Vicky Now, she encouraged me to incorporate into music, or just do songwriting and pick it back up again. So it was a really great way to blend them all together. So, and finally the mixtape is kind of what stemmed before I went back to it, but it's more so writing after the songs, just kind of either piggyback off of the message in the songs, or just having my own interpretation of it, or what the songs meant to me during that time, and I wrote based on those moments.
So you had a song I would take it, it's a popular song that you listen to, and then from that you would write a poem based on your experience with that song. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that
No, it's mostly for my favorite songs, or the songs I enjoyed at the time.
Oh, okay, okay. So what are some of the songs that you from the book from the book itself that you that inspired you? Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I was wondering if you if there's any one of your favorites. I was wondering, but the ones I picked out are just like some K-pop artists like Tomorrow by Together, BTS, and also some of my other favorite artists like Rina Sawayama, as well as Prince, and some others that I really enjoyed like Amil Sunday and Kaylani and Sam Smith. So those are the ones that appeared in my micro book.
Nice, nice. Okay, cool, cool. And this has been back. So what's really interesting about that is that it goes, it was something that was inspired for you by your grad school teachers to really touch into that and to go back to that and use that. So some of these are going back to when you were a child or all throughout your life. So you're bringing it back from that and then birthing it. So it's is it like a gift to your younger self to give her that voice, would you say? And to say like, hey, younger self, I see you and I'm gonna bring this out, then refine it a little. Does that make sense?
For this micro book?
The finally the mixtape. What I'm saying is that like the poetry, the songs that you're writing were from when you were a younger age, and that as an older person in grad school, you were encouraged to sort of bring it back up. So in a sense of that younger person that was writing things as a child, it was like a gift to your child to actually return to that in a sense. And also I wonder, was it healing for you to kind of look back over these songs and spend some time writing? Does that make sense? And contemplating and then bringing it to the world. Was that a healing
No,
journey
it
for
makes
you?
sense. No, it makes sense. I mean, I think you're so finally the mixtape is not focusing on that per se. It's focusing mostly on like what it's like after I graduated college, and those
Okay.
songs are kind of, and that's kind of like enveloping that. The one I was, the one I think you're focusing on, I believe, is the poetry collection I'm working on right now, which
Okay.
is the one I've been working on when I was in grad school. So
Okay.
it's basically just like the theme of nostalgia
Hmm.
and just kind of like incorporating not just like pop music, but also like things I grew up with, like TV shows, movies, mangas, and anime, just to like kind of how all of that kind of just helped me grow and learn and understanding my relationship with myself as well as my family and friends, grief and identity. So that part, I guess you can say, it's like the extension of what Finally the Mixtape does. But for Finally the Mixtape, I incorporated the music part that is very strong and heavy, but it's mostly focusing on like what my life is like after post college.
Okay, cool, cool. Okay, but and then now you're working on something new that is more like a nostalgic throughout your life. But what I'm hearing is that your work as a poet and as an author always comes from a place of your own like uh evolutionary journey, whatever that's like post college and then into grad school with the finally the mixtape or what you're working on now, kind of looking back over your life. There's always a sense of like um autobiographical. Is that correct? Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, in a way. And even when you mentioned about like there's the healing part of it, I think it's mostly like for finally the mixtape is focusing on like just kind of like where I am, like post college, as you mentioned, of just like where I'm navigating life. And because there's just a lot of happenings going on, like from the passing of my father, as well as
Mhm.
just like relationships and how much that have changed. And then and it was very small and also kind of like a hybrid with CD. And
Mhm.
then with the poetry collection I'm working on with the debut poetry collection, at which I'm hoping to get that out soon and hopefully get published. Just focusing kind of like expanding on that too, and just also having that path of like watching from childhood all the way up to adulthood, or just what I consider present, like present day,
Mhm.
and having this like all in the journey of just like forgiving my younger self, as you mentioned before. So it is definitely to have that autobiographical journey for both like
Yeah.
finally the mixtape as well as the collection I'm working on right now.
Right, right. Because I can understand that. Because, like, I'm a writer, and all that the pieces that I write is mostly it's been more screenwriting now, but they all have that autobiographical sense, even if it's not like telling that exact story. like my exact story, there's an element of my truth, my story in it that becomes very healing. And I think that for me anyways, I couldn't as a writer see it any other way but to write for my own personal healing experience. Yeah. So no, I find that really interesting because I remember when I graduated college in my like mid going into my late 20s, there was like this like turmoil because it's like I'd always been in school and then suddenly I wasn't in school. And then it's like, well, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? So that was a really thinking about the finally the mixtape, and then that you'd had a lot of like emotional like upheavals with the loss of your father and tragedy and this and that. So taking that time period and writing it in this book, like this time capsule, that is like, it's like they call it the quarter life crisis for a reason. That's a really
Oh,
inspiring time to do that. And then what you're working on now, um yeah, I just I'm there's no real question for that. I'm just like saying that's really I honor that in you and honor that for that's a very brave of you to do to write that poetry down, create it, and then to put it out in the world and then to get it published and move forward with that is really, really amazing. And very strong of you. So thank you for doing that. What is the publishing process? You know, you mentioned that you work for a magazine and then you have a publisher. How does that all work? If you want to share a little bit about that.
yeah. Yeah, so for finally the mixtape, to just kind of focusing on the micro chapbook, it was the process of originally I just wanted to be like a micro chapbook, and it was my friend Dina Clarice that sent me over to Ganshin Teeth Publishing where they had an open call for submissions, and I sent them over on a whim, thinking that maybe there could be potential. And I had a great meeting with Katie, who is one of the editors at and co-founder, I believe, at Ganshin Teeth Publishing, presented this incredible idea of just like using a CD, bringing in
Mm-hmm.
incorporating the CD into it. So it was that publishing process, and just through that, and also just this is also my time to learn how to record like my poems for like in the audio a portion of the micro chapbook. And it was an interesting process of just like hearing and listening and editing and what sounds good and how like sounded okay or not. So it was a very interesting process, and it helped me learn a lot about pacing and what I sound like on the page. So it was really like a great experience for that as well as for like the publishing. Like I just coordinate a lot, talk with Katie a lot with like the process of like if the font looks okay, or just like the page is okay, or if the order of the pages are okay. And it was really great communication on their end. And for the art cover, I asked my friend Carlos Manello, who did an incredible job doing an art for the cover. And I pretty much like I gave him an idea, but like Carlos had this awesome, great way of just like doing like using a cassette tape and just having like a write it down, like finally the mixtape. And it was like
Yeah, yeah.
purple and blue, and it's really great. I don't know, have you seen the cover, Leah?
Yeah, yeah, you shared it. I saw it on social media. Yeah, and I like it. And that's
Yeah.
very like 90s, 2000s kind of like because like I'm a 90s teen, you're a 2000s teen kid kind of thing.
No, I'm like 90s. I was born in the 90s.
You're born in the 90s, so you're yeah, so in the 2000s you were a teenager? No? Is that right?
I was a kid in the
Okay.
2000 early
Oh,
2000s.
I'm oh, that's right. That makes sense. But still like but it's very 2000s, 90s nostalgia because in the 2000s I was still making mixtapes and I'm sure at some point you
Mhm.
actually, they're the coolest things ever. And so it has that like nostalgic like when I saw that finally the mixtape and I saw the tape there I was like, "Oh, that's the coolest thing ever." My library card is a mixtape. And every time I take it, people are
Oh,
like, that
nice.
is so cool. So, yeah, it's a very nostalgic feeling for us older people, but even for you in your lifetime, you knew about mixtapes, even if you were a little tiny person.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a good, so, what do you have a title for this new one you're working on? Uh,
Well, to kind of go back to the mixtape of the publishing process, it was just kind of like coordinating and of course just like re-listing it in the summer, which was exciting. And I thought that would be very interesting. And it was a really interesting process to kind of have like go through the macro chapbook. And it just made me appreciate Katie, who is an incredible like publisher and editor, and the folks at Gashing Teeth Publishing, which I really am grateful for that, and be able to have the chance to work with an artist that I really love and appreciate, and also who I call as a friend. So yeah, it was a really cool experience for that. And as for the new project, I am just kind of like submitting it to literary presses and like crossing my fingers at the moment right now. But
Yeah.
I worked on it. I've worked on it during my time at grad school, which I recently graduated,
Mhm.
and just kind of like going through it and a lot of rough drafts and like which poems to take out. And it's
Mhm.
a great process. And where it's at right now, I'm really like proud of it and been just submitting it to literary presses since then. And so especially after I graduated.
Yeah, my question here is way to go to keep the ball rolling after graduation to like no time. Low keep the like don't let the ground, whatever the thing is, just keep going. You're so passionate and driven. It's very inspiring and creative. It's very inspiring. Maybe it's why we click so well. Um so okay. Okay, first question was I've heard the words micro chapbook. Can you explain maybe what a chapbook is and what a micro chapbook is for those of us that are not as literary or poetry literary minded? What is the actual meaning of a chapbook and a literary yeah.
Yeah, so for a macro chapbook, it's basically like kind of like a small booklet. So it's
Hmm.
like about 15 to 20 pages. So it's really much less. That's a micro chapbook. For a chapbook, it's about like, if I remember right, it's about like 30 pages,
Hmm. Hmm.
30 to 40 pages of just like poems and collection of poems. Whereas a full collection, it's most likely, it's more than like, it's mostly between 50 to 70 pages.
Hmm.
Sometimes that full collection can be over 100 pages. I've
Hmm.
seen like a lot of poetry books that are over 100, but
Hmm.
there most of the cases it's like if it's a full collection, it's usually like 50 to 70 pages,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
maybe 80 if they're pushing it.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
sometimes there's some collections that are like 120. But
Hmm.
for a micro chapbook, it's basically like a small booklet. It's very
Hmm.
small.
Yeah. So, about the process of recording, were you in a studio at the publisher, or were you like had the whole system set up and you were recording them and then sending them? Like, were you in an actual studio and you were like there and you were recording it and listening to it, or was it like on your own and then send the files over and then kind of communicate that way? How was the process of recording?
I wish I was in a studio. That would have been nice. But but no, I basically was in my room, like in a quiet space, and just put
Mhm.
my headphones on, and I made sure I put like I was like really close to the mic because
Mhm.
my computer is like a built-in have a built-in mic, so I
Mhm.
use that. And sometimes where I need like that much quiet and peace, I did one time with like a public library, and that was like the one time.
Uh-huh.
But most of the time it's just like my room where it's like nobody's home, and I just like record it.
Late at night when
And
everybody's asleep or something. Yeah, yeah. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
something like that. Yeah, but my family are really respectful. So like
Hmm.
sometimes if I need like if I need to record something, I let them know and they got the
Hmm.
good heads up. So they make sure to like they're respectful for that. They
Hmm.
understand, I should say.
Yeah,
They're very
yeah,
understanding.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so you have the finally the mixtape, you have the book that you're trying to submit now. And then I know that there was I have your chapbook from college. Where can the and so that's the only one that's actually available for purchase right now or out there in the world is finally the mixtape, correct? Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
where can people find that?
Yeah, so they can find it on Gashington Publishing's website, which I believe it is gashingtonpublishing.com,
Right.
and it's on their website. And it's usually under the tab that's like mixed media. That's
Mm-hmm.
where they can find it, and they'll see my micro chapbook there. We also just recently published the digital version. So in case somebody folks don't have the money to pay for the physical CD, we have the digital copy of that available on the site as well.
Cool, cool. Okay, and so what else? You said you work for a literary magazine. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, where can else people find you as far as and find your work? What do you do for the literary
Yeah.
magazine?
Yeah, so I'm a poetry editor for Variety Pack magazine, where we pretty much publish like works from pretty much everyone from like all around the world. We're pretty inclusive when it comes to like what poems we pick. But we're like I said, we just closed our submission calls, like believe at the time of the recording yesterday. So
Mhm.
we're trying to go through some of the poems right now. So yeah, I work under Variety Pack as their poetry editor. I've
Mhm.
been there since like I want to say since COVID, or like a year after like the start of the COVID pandemic.
Right.
So I believe that's I've been around. So I've
Right.
been
Yeah.
around for
Yeah.
a good chunk of my time. But the team there are great. JB, who is the editor in chief at Variety Pack, has been very great to me, and I have wonderful readers as well. Lauren is great, as well as Maddie, and yeah, and as well as just like everyone who has been there, like come and go. But
Mhm.
they've been great and a wonderful team. So very collaborative, and we've been publishing like great poems, and we just selected two poems, I believe, for the pushcart
Mhm.
prize, I believe, or best of net, but it's one of those two. And we've been publishing really good poems
Nice.
since then, since I started. So I'm really proud of the work we've done, even though it's like volunteer based. And I just recently did lead a poetry workshop where it's basically like we write poems to pop music. So I
Mm.
did that for with the Variety Pack to help raise money for the magazine.
So how did that work as far as you played the music and then as the music was playing, they would write or play the music and
Yeah,
then okay.
yeah, so mainly it's that I just introduced like poems where other poets did the same kind of the same thing. So for finally the mixtape, I was inspired by Barbara J. Raines, who is an incredible poet and from the Bay Area, and she did have a section from her collection of poems, Yellows to Letters to a Young Brown Girl, where she has like songs that she listened to, and she wrote to
Mm.
kind of like how she like expressed herself, or how she experienced while listening to it. And I was so inspired by that what led me to writing finally the mixtape, and just kind of course like shared all the experience, like what it was like being post college. So
Mhm.
then I used like one of Barbara's poems, as well as other poems like Rosebud Ben Omni, as well as one of my own, to kind of give like folks who are wanted to interested doing that, to give it a sense of how they did it. So sometimes with Barbara, she used like herself as like a Filipina American to identity of just like how she experienced that with one of the pop song. And then I used one of the songs that Barbara used for everyone else to listen to, so they can have their own interpretation through the
Mhm.
of the song, or how they listen to it. And I do the same thing with Rosebud Ben Uni, and then I did mine with SZA for Rosebud. It was Big Bang. It was a great experience too, and it also gives some like folks to give an idea and discuss. So yeah, it was a fun
Nice.
experience.
And this was in person or over Zoom or both or
Over Zoom.
oh, okay. Very cool. Very cool. Good for you. That's awesome. I'm gonna look forward to hearing more about your postgraduate journey and all that you're gonna do in the world because you're doing amazing things. Um, are there any, before we do any closing, is there anything else you feel like you want to add as far as either about your book or about being a poet or a writer or anything you think that needs to go out into the world, like a special message of inspiration?
Yeah, I'm just like kind of, I think maybe this is just like a message to self, or like I'm just glad that I'm hoping to continue like writing poems, and despite everything what's going on like my life right now and just what to do. So just kind of like continuing like what I wanted to do, as well as just like following Vicky Now's advice of just like turning a coffin to a boat and just keep going like with a project I'm working on. I already
Mhm.
have ideas of what I wanted to write for my like for a next book, but I want to make sure I focus and have take care of the one I'm working on right now, the same way how I did it with finally the mixtape.
I'm so
And I hope
excited to
folks
see
get
that.
to thank you.
I'm
And I
so
hope
excited.
folks
I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah, and I also hope that folks have the chance and opportunity to listen and read finally the mixtape because like it's been out for a while and I hope it gets amount of love and care that it really deserves because it's a wonderful project and I'm so gracious that it's out in the world. So I hope that everyone gets the chance to listen to it and get to read it.
Well, I'm going to make sure that the link for that and any other links are in the description below so people will check it out. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you for a, poetry instruction or whatever else? Is there someplace they can find you, like an Instagram or something?
Yeah, if you're on Instagram, I'm at the Sakura Inc., which spells TheSaKuraink. So the Sakura Inc. I'm
Mhm.
there, and I believe I'm also on the Dead Bird app. I call it the Dead Bird app, not what it's called now, but I call it it's yeah, I call it the Dead Bird app, not the actual thing. I call it Twitter. I still call it Twitter, but I call it the Dead Bird app.
Like that.
Um, yeah, and it's like it's my name, which is ASELALEE letter K. If you want to follow, if you're still there and want to follow me there. But most of the time, I'm like on Instagram, so
Mhm.
like posting stuff. But I also encourage everyone to also follow Variety Pack magazine. I believe their Instagram, if I check, just to give it a check so I won't forget either. So it's a Variety Pack Zine. So it's Variety Pack Zine on Instagram, as well as I also co-host a podcast with one of my best friends, Katrina M, called To and Sing. So
Yeah.
we're on Instagram. It's at Asela Katrina Pod, which spells Katrina pod pod. So we're on Instagram and you can listen to our stuff on SoundCloud, which is we are Two in Sync.
Nice, nice, cool. Thank you very much, Asela.